A high-quality visual novel takes time to release. What's much harder to make peace with, though, is that when a game you love announces a sequel and then years upon years pass with no updates at all. This video is about those games. These are visual novels that are either indefinitely delayed, silently cancelled, in development hell for so long the fanbase is clearly coping, or exists in limbo where they're technically not cancelled but also clearly not coming out anytime soon. That one will be the last title I will talk about today. Hi, my name is August, and depressingly, I'm going to talk about visual novels that will probably, definitely, never come out. Some of these have legitimate sympathetic reasons behind their delays, others are just executive decisions due to certain conditions, and some of them I am less optimistic about due to the author's motivations and other priorities. So let's start with a real mixed bag of all of those. Ciconia no Nakukuru ni / Ciconia When They Cry Phase 2. Ciconia is Ryukishi 07's newest entry in the When They Cry series, a sci-fi story about a group of people called the Gauntlet Knights trying to prevent World War IV. Like with the other When They Cry installments, it was split into two parts. Ciconia Phase 1 came out in October 2019, and Phase 2 was scheduled for 2020. Fans were waiting for the conclusion to Ciconia, and then COVID hit. And then the Russian-Ukraine war happened. In his words, it was like writing about Godzilla, and Godzilla really ended up coming. In a response to a fan work in 2023, Ryukishi said he didn't feel right writing about World War as entertainment when an actual war conflict is going on, which is, to his credit, a genuinely thoughtful reason to pause. The problem is that the world has not stopped being in conflict, and world tensions have not simmered down at all. However, there's also the major fact that the Ciconia director, Nakao Boshi, has been suffering from an illness since 2020, fully preventing them from resuming their work altogether. That said, Ryukishi hasn't just been sitting around doing nothing. In the meanwhile, since announcing the delay in 2020, he's been working on multiple projects, writing a collaboration key visual novel called Loopers, the Higurashi Go /Totsu anime/manga, the Gero Katsu visual novels, and of all things, writing the story for Silent Hill F. However, fans have been patiently waiting, some others being ironically vocal. There's a particular Twitter account called Is Ciconia Phase 2 Out Yet?, which has existed long enough to have over 1,000 posts, each one of them being some variation of no. I don't think Ciconia is dead, and I believe Ryukishi won't abandon it. He has claimed that Ciconia was his reason to work and live, but in the meanwhile, fans will be patiently waiting until conditions have gotten better. And so, until then, When They Cry will continue to be perpetuated through Higurashi, and only Higurashi, when Umineko fans cry. But in comparison to a title that has been indefinitely postponed, this next series actually has an estimated roadmap to their most anticipated title ever, despite all the problems the company is facing right now. Age's Muv-Luv Resonative and Integrate. In 2024, Age laid out a roadmap for the Muv-Luv series, the Road to Integrate, their long-term plan for the future of Muv-Luv. Resonative is the conclusion to the Muv-Luv Unlimited The Day series, while Integrate is a proper sequel to Muv-Luv Alternative, set 10 years after, featuring a brand new protagonist. As of the time of this video, we are currently here on the roadmap with Muv-Luv Tactics upcoming, but this is the most critical junction of modern Muv-Luv. This game is very important because it serves as their proof of concept for incorporating strategy RPG gameplay into every title onward. The project producer states that the current scope of Muv-Luv Integrate and Resonative will cost too much money to develop unless they turn them into SRPG/visual novel hybrids for modern day marketability towards a mainstream audience. And this is taken all into context given that there have been numerous mentions of financial difficulties over at the company. I do have expectations for this. To reiterate, Age is clearly still active and is invested in this roadmap for Muv-Luv's future, releasing mobile and console versions of previous installments both in the East and the West. And most recently, brand new announcements for Muv-Luv Tactics, Kaladisa and Nightmare, a new SRPG Muv-Luv game releasing in 2027, and Muv-Luv Girls Garden, the franchise's RPG gacha game having an English release in Q4 2026. Integrate does feel like it will be released in the next decade, conditionally on Tactics' success. God, I hope that Muv-Luv Tactics is successful and the profits from Muv-Luv Girls Garden, aka Muv-Luv Blue Archive, is helping. Next up is a visual novel series in which the developers certainly changed their minds when thinking of a sequel. Not once, but twice. Aokana Zwei and Minamo If. Aokana is a fan favorite, wholesome visual novel series, a sports story all about competitive dogfighting that also doubles as a passionate romance story. It won the first place award in 2014 in the Moe Game Awards, and romance fans both in the East and the West loved it. The developers, Sprite, would then go on to announce a sequel title, Aokana Zwei, at Anime Japan in March 2016. It is now 2026. Due to Sprite going on hiatus in 2018, development of Aokana Zwei was put on hold indefinitely. Now, while they never made Aokana Zwei, fans would get something else instead from the developers. Aokana fan discs for the game's most popular characters. The first fan disc, Aokana Extra 1, will be a continuation of Mashiro's route from the original story. The second fan disc, Aokana Extra 2, will be a continuation of Misaki's route from the original story. Both would be released in 2017 and 2020 respectively, and would be released with an English translation much later. They would then go on to announce another new game, Aokana If 01 Minamo Shirase, in October 2021. The game would feature Minamo Shirase as the main heroine. However, we have not received an update regarding the development of Minamo If since its initial announcement. Sprite has been doing other projects in the meanwhile, in the form of Everlasting Flowers and Where the Golden Swallowtail Came to Rest, but nothing on the Aokana front, besides new merchandise and remastered editions. As an avid fan of Aokana, I've pretty much gave up on expecting anything new from the Aokana series. But like a complete sucker, I'm probably gonna end up buying the Aokana 15th Anniversary Edition when it comes out. Now, while big names are one such type of developer to experience all sorts of issues, indie titles aren't excluded from this too. Let's start with Nirvana Cyberpunk Bartending Action, the sequel to everyone's favorite cyberpunk bartending simulator, Valhalla. Valhalla came out in 2016 and it is one of the most beloved, under-the-radar indie visual novels ever. A very chill game where you serve futuristic drinks to all sorts of unique and interesting customers in their dystopian futuristic city. To those who've played it, we'll vouch for it. Everything from the vibes, the music, the conversations, and even the bartender you play, Jill Stingray herself. The sequel, Nirvana, was announced in 2018, targeting a 2020 release. A similar game featuring an entirely brand new cast of characters and setting. Set in St. Alicia, a tourist paradise with a seedy underbelly, the new bartender Sam would serve all sorts of drinks to her customers as she also balances her family difficulties. Unfortunately, the developers posted an update in December 2020 announcing its indefinite delay. The sole programmer on the project was going through major life events and refused to hand off his role, self-admittedly. The game ended up being rebuilt from scratch. Along with all sorts of other problems like creative differences regarding the story, the developers Sukiban Games stated that due to all of these uprootings of the project, it has effectively been reset on many fronts. Nirvana's release date will likely be announced once the game is complete. For now, Sukiban Games is focused on a different project, .45 Parabellum Bloodhound, with my self-assumption that Nirvana's development will pick back up once that wraps. The Steam page for Nirvana still exists, albeit dusty from being in limbo for so long. But regardless, developers expect that when Nirvana is ready to be announced, the wait will be fully worth it. The other indie game I wanted to talk about is the final chapter of a solo-developed RPG Maker game. Your Turn to Die, Death Game by Majority, Chapter 3, Part 2. A very beloved killing death game mystery. Having been released episodically since 2017, the last chapter was scheduled to release on Steam by February 21st, 2024, but was unfortunately postponed. Development updates have been sparse, but in their February 2025 Steam 2nd anniversary post, they confirm Nankidai is still hard at work. The final chapter is taking longer than expected, and they were hoping to share news in 2026. Out of everything in this list, Your Turn to Die Chapter 3 Part 2 is probably the closest to actually existing. It's just a matter of when in 2026. And now, next up is a series that's pretty much confirmed canceled. So thoroughly canceled that even the writer joked about it themselves. The Angel Beats Beat series. The project was meant to be a visual novel adaptation of the beloved 2010 anime, featuring story changes from the original and dedicated routes for each character. Key had outlined 6 planned volumes, each one focusing on exploring different characters' backstory. The first installment, First Beat, came out in June 2015, and it was pretty good. It was both an extended adaptation of the anime with alternative endings, plenty of comedic choices, and in-depth story scenarios for Iwasawa, Yui, and Masushita. However, after its release, there hasn't been a single installment to the series since. Around this time, Jun Maeda was struggling with health issues, and despite attempts to revive the series, due to complications, it never got its energy back and was pretty much cancelled in 2016. It then became a huge surprise when Heaven Burns Red, Key's gacha game RPG, and Jun Maeda's passion project would later receive a collaboration event with Angel Beats. Not one, but 3 collaboration events, each one focusing on the remaining members of the in-universe band in Angel Beats' Girls Dead Monster. These events are pretty much considered as the spiritual successor to the Angel Beats series, exploring the same themes and messages with the same emotional impact. There's even a cheeky nod towards the Beats series in the first collaboration event, so they're at least self-aware of Second Beat's non-existence, as cruel as that sounds. If you're interested, I actually did a video exploring both the content of Angel Beats' first beat as well as the collaboration event. So while it may not be the Beats series, these events really are the unofficial continuation of this cancelled series. Next up, let's talk about a visual novel remake where I feel just has been in development hell for the longest time, where it was so bad that the publishers for the game outright dropped it altogether. Fate Extra Record. Fate Extra Record is a full remake of the 2010 PSP game Fate Extra. Announced in July 2020 on the original game's 10th anniversary, the remake would be developed by Type Moon Studio BB and directed by Nino Kazuya. The new game features updated combat, fully voiced cutscenes, and an expanded scenario. The release date was eventually delayed from 2025 to spring 2016. The announcement was apologetic. Nino stated that he underestimated how long it would take to record full voices for the whole game, including side characters. And then, in March 2026, Type Moon announced a delay after Bandai Namco stepped back from publishing the game. Type Moon confirmed that development is still continuing and they're looking for a new publisher, but until then, the release date of the game is undetermined. It's been 6 years since, and things look pretty grim for fans, with all information being that Nino and Studio BB are still working on it. I genuinely don't know how to bet on this one ever coming out, but until then, I'm hopefully optimistic. Which takes me to my next one in terms of complete vagueness, being talked about as a concept idea, much less something in actual production, I personally think. Witch on the Holy Night / Mahoyo 2 and 3. Despite Mahoyo being a perfectly fine standalone title, the author, Nasu Kunoko, has talked about Mahoyo sequels in various interviews across the years. In one 2012 interview, Nasu revealed that the series' story starts in earnest with the second game. Later on in 2022, Nasu says that he would like to release a Mahoyo sequel after completing other priorities. He described the format as flexible. The sequels might come in the form of visual novels, or they might be a different medium entirely. What is real, though, is that the Mahoyo IP is clearly alive. Ufotable is releasing an anime film adaptation this year, and the recent PC and console ports have found a new wave of readers in the West. There is demand for more Mahoyo content, but whether or not Nasu is able to pick up the pen again for Mahoyo, considering his other projects, it might be a long time waiting. This bothers me in particular, considering the Mahoyo collaboration event in Fate Grand Order reveals unique details / references clearly important events to things that don't even exist in canon yet. And yet, even before Mahoyo, as much as I want it, he needs to finish the visual novel I've saved for last on this list, my most anticipated title, Tsukihime: The Other Side of Red Garden. To preface, Tsukihime: A Piece of Blue Glass Moon came out in Japan in 2021, globally in June 2024, and it was phenomenal. One of the best visual novels in years with AAA production quality. However, it was only one half of the original Tsukihime visual novel. At the end, if you complete the game, you unlock a teaser trailer for The Other Side of Red Garden, which hinted at the far side routes, story scenarios for Akiha, Hisui, Kohaku, and crucially, for some hardcore fans, Satsuki Yumizuka, whose route was cut from the original 2000s game and has been one of the most requested pieces of Type Moon content for 25 years. However, Type Moon has been completely silent regarding any updates on Red Garden. General Type Moon development theories suggest that Nasu's attention has been split by other obligations, whether that be Fate Grand Order, some other Fate property, and Mahoyo as I mentioned before, but all of this is purely speculation. So until then, I and many other fans will be hard coping for at least any crumbs regarding Red Garden. Those were all of the big visual novel titles, to my knowledge, that exist in limbo and will probably come out in the next decade, era, or never. Here's a fun game. Comment below to let me know which game you think will come out first. Or feel free to voice all of your frustrations. In the meanwhile, while you're waiting for these games to come out, consider checking out these videos for visual novel recommendations. I would like to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting me in covering visual novels. You guys are fantastic, and if you'd like to be a part of that effort, please consider subscribing.